This is Ken Martin, the chair of the Democratic National Committee. As covered in a previous video, Martin ordered a comprehensive review of why the Democrats lost in 2024. But then in December 2025, he changed his mind. In a statement on the matter, Martin wrote, "The review is complete, and we are already putting our learnings into motion. We're winning again, even in places that haven't gone blue in decades. Here's our North Star. Does it help us win? If the answer is no, it's a distraction from the core mission." And months later, despite significant backlash and pressure from Democrats and political pundits, Ken Martin refused to release the report.
Why not release the full report? What's in the report that you wouldn't want
well, first off,
to publicize?
There's no smoking gun in the report. And I know that's what everyone's so eager to learn. The smoking gun. Guess what, John?
But if there's no smoking gun, why wouldn't you just release it then?
Because we want to keep the focus on the lessons.
But then, in May 2026, CNN obtained a copy of the autopsy, and that in turn forced Ken Martin to finally release it. With some caveats. When I received the report late last year, it wasn't ready for primetime. Not even close. Now, the author of the autopsy was Paul Rivera, a Democrat operative who hadn't worked on a presidential bid since John Kerry's losing campaign in 2004. And according to Ken Martin, Rivera did this work for free or something.
The person and people who are involved in it were not paid to do this work, okay? The person we asked to do this is an unpaid advisor to the DNC.
Wait, let me get this straight. The Democratic Party, which spent over $1 billion to spectacularly lose the 2024 election, couldn't find the cash to actually pay someone to figure out why they lost. CNN reports, though he'd set the autopsy as a priority, Ken Martin decided to have Rivera in charge as a part-time volunteer while juggling other clients. Rivera would sometimes say he was available to conduct interviews only before 9 a.m., after 7 p.m., or on weekends. So the DNC's massive, comprehensive post-mortem was being run as a part-time side hustle by a guy squeezing it in between breakfast and bedtime. Now, the report is not remotely finished. Every single page has a disclaimer on the top saying, "This document reflects the views of the author, not the DNC. The DNC was not provided with the underlying sourcing, interviews, or supporting data for many of the assertions contained herein, and therefore cannot independently verify the claims presented." I mean, it sure seems like sources were supposed to be provided. As the report states, a traditional bibliography can be found here, and more data is provided in the appendix below. An appendix that doesn't exist, by the way. So why weren't Ken Martin and the DNC provided any of the sourcing or the quotes from interviews? And why didn't Ken Martin demand to see the actual receipts or the source material? Well, couldn't tell you. Instead, he released a report riddled with over 250 annotations like, "No evidence provided for this claim," or "contradicts claims elsewhere in the report." Hang on, I thought Ken Martin said that the review was complete. I am not proud of this product. It does not meet my standards, and it won't meet your standards. I don't endorse what's in this report or what's left out of it. I could not, in good faith, put the DNC stamp of approval on it. In short, I didn't want to create a distraction. Ironically, in doing so, I ended up creating an even bigger distraction. And for that, I sincerely apologize. So to be clear, when Ken Martin said, quote, "The review is complete," he was lying. In reality, it was a half-baked, unsourced train wreck written by a part-time volunteer. But instead of just admitting that the DNC totally botched the assignment, Ken Martin tried to spin burying the report as some kind of brilliant strategic move to avoid a distraction.
People, of course, want to weaponize the report in a way to look backwards, to point fingers, place blame in a way that actually doesn't keep us focused on the upcoming election. Instead of navel-gazing and looking backwards and trying to relitigate 2024, I don't know about you, John, but I don't have a time machine. I don't think you do. No one does, so we can't change what happened in 24.
So we need to learn the lessons from the 2024 election, but we have to do it by looking forward, not backwards. Makes sense to me. What's your problem? And this is indicative of the DNC's entire operation right now. Not only could they not manage to finish an election report, but they can't even manage their own checkbook. According to the most recent reporting period, the Republican National Committee has $95 million in cash on hand with zero in reported debt. The DNC, on the other hand, only has around $13 million cash on hand, but with around $17 million in reported debt. I guess that explains why they had to rely on an unpaid, part-time volunteer to write their highly anticipated post-mortem, because they literally couldn't afford to hire anybody else. Well, it turns out that the old saying is true. You get what you pay for, because this free report is just an incoherent and unfocused mess. Just look at this glaring historical error. The report refers to the 2022 Georgia Senate election, where Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock went up against Republican challenger Herschel Walker. This was a blatant attempt by the Republican power base to take advantage of name recognition and tough economic conditions to push through an unqualified candidate whose job would have been little more than rubber stamping the president's agenda. So according to the report, Republican Herschel Walker, running for the Senate in 2022, was going to rubber stamp the president's agenda. Except for one thing. In 2022, Joe Biden was the president. But brilliant analysis, Paul. You're doing God's work. And this same report, bursting at the seams with brain-dead factual errors, actually spends multiple pages extensively whining about misinformation and disinformation. There is an obvious and conscious effort by foreign and domestic actors to shape electoral choices through misinformation and disinformation directed at American voters. Misinformation and disinformation are effective when there is a lack of trust or confidence in leaders and platforms, leading voters susceptible to whatever they see or hear. But on the other hand, the report makes several false claims like, nearly 3,000 people stormed the United States Capitol building, leading to the deaths of 5 people, including one Capitol police officer who was beaten to death by the insurrectionists. And the report also claims that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 because of massive election interference. Ah yes, literal election denial and long debunked hoaxes, proudly printed in the very same document crying about misinformation. The hypocrisy is so thick that you could barely cut it with a chainsaw. Now, I know a lot of you were expecting a deep dive analysis on the DNC 2024 autopsy, but the truth is, it's an unfinished mess showing a level of incompetence that honestly explains exactly why the Democrats got steamrolled in 2024, better than the actual report ever could. In fact, the report is most notable for what isn't in it, like sections vital to literally any professional document, including an executive summary or even a conclusion. And what it didn't address is glaring. For starters, it completely ignored the impact of the Democratic Party and the media spending years attempting to gaslight voters into believing that Joe Biden was fit for a second term.
I've said it for years now. He's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
The report also didn't give an analysis as to how Joe Biden's decision to run again set off a chain of events that ended with the party staging a desperate last-minute coup against their own sitting president, only to bypass the voters and undemocratically crown Kamala Harris as the nominee without a single primary vote. The report didn't address Kamala Harris's failure to differentiate herself from Joe Biden.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
And what about Harris's extremely poor choice of a running mate? Not to mention Tim Wall's psychopath wife.
You just show me this. Turn the page, right? Turn the page. And you know what else that looks like? Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Donald Trump. We are turning the page. 52 days and we are turning the page. 52 days and it is bye-bye, Donald Trump. That's right.
The autopsy didn't address how Trump was ultimately a better campaigner, and how he achieved several viral moments late in the campaign, like appearing in a McDonald's, riding in a garbage truck, or appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience. On the other hand, Kamala Harris came across like a robot, with every speech being a copy-paste of the previous speech. And you don't have to take my word for it, here's Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks.
Every single rally speech was pathetic. It was the same speech every single time, the same message every single time.
I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with a working mother who kept a strict budget. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with a working mother who kept a strict budget. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with a working mother who kept a strict budget. I come from the middle class. I know what I'm talking about. I come from the middle class. I come from the middle class.
She's awkward. She's uncomfortable in her own skin.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that.
No passion behind it, no real genuine or no sincerity behind it.
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. While inflation is down and wages are up, prices are still too high. You know it and I know it. You know it and I know it. You know it and I know it. You know it and I know it.
It was just a robotic, weird, over-rehearsed speech, and it was the same speech again and again and again.
Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again.
But despite running one of the most painfully inauthentic campaigns in modern political history, Kamala Harris hasn't gotten the hint. In fact, she's already threatening us with a sequel.
So are you gonna run again in 28?
Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
Don't threaten us with a good time, Kamala. But while the Republicans would love nothing more than a Kamala sequel, the Democratic establishment is currently mashing the panic button. The same day that the DNC's 2024 autopsy was released, Vanity Fair published a piece called "Who Wants Kamala Harris to Run?" The answer will not surprise you. Aside from her close advisors, none spoke enthusiastically about a Harris 2028 campaign. No, says one former Harris campaign advisor when asked if she should run. It's obviously a bad idea. I have spoken to maybe one person out of 100 who thinks she should run, says another. Whether it's former campaign colleagues, people around DC, or just people around the country who are like, oh God, she's not gonna run again. One veteran Democratic operative said, I have been all over the country for these midterms, and I have not encountered anybody who said, boy, I really hope Kamala runs. Will she run? Most likely yes. Should she? Absolutely not, says a former White House aide. There is no appetite for the former vice president to return to the campaign trail. And one Democratic consultant claims, I can't really name one person who is excited about the prospect of her running or thinks that it would wind up being a successful endeavor. So the entire Democrat machine is practically begging her to ride off into the sunset and never come back. But what does Kamala's inner circle think? Well, apparently they're living in fantasy land. Harris's team has heard all this criticism, and they're prone to dismissing it as petty Beltway bitterness. I think it's crazy, says a current Harris advisor. She got more votes than anyone else who's thinking about running. She has national experience. She almost beat Trump last time, even in terrible circumstances of a short campaign, Biden's unpopularity, inflation, says a former White House official, and there should be no reason that she wouldn't be well placed to beat Trump's successor under better circumstances. She almost beat Trump. She lost the Electoral College by 86 votes and only carried 19 states while Trump took 31. She got absolutely steamrolled, but don't let reality get in the way of a good delusion. So Kamala is already out there plotting her glorious comeback, and she's kicking it off exactly how you'd expect, by blessing us with some freshly untossed, unburdened word salad.
It is so important that the leaders who are on this call, everyone who has joined, that you are doing what you are doing, that collectively we are doing what we are doing to say that we are going to be active and we are going to take action.
Doing what we are doing to say we are doing what we're doing. The great orator of our time, America. But if you think her rhetorical skills are lacking, just wait until you hear what passes for a strategy.
I think that we need an expanded playbook in a way that we invite all ideas, that we have basically, that we say, this is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it.
Ah yes, a no bad ideas brainstorm. And what kind of brilliant, moderate, unifying concepts is Kamala tossing at the wall during this little thought exercise?
And in that no bad ideas brainstorm, we talk about what we need to do and think about doing around the Electoral College. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. We invite a conversation about multi-members districts. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and DC.
Oh, would you look at that? Her brainstorm is just a laundry list of radical schemes to completely dismantle the Electoral College, pack the Supreme Court, and permanently alter the Senate. Just a couple casual, lighthearted conversation pieces about completely rewriting the fundamental rules of the United States government because voters keep rejecting your policies. I'll give her this much, though. Calling it a no bad ideas brainstorm is incredibly accurate, considering that she clearly hasn't had a single good idea during her entire political career. And speaking of bad ideas, here's Kamala Harris with her future vice presidential pick, Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson, aka Martin Luther Cringe.
We need to have a playbook that is born out of our ability to assume some risk, perhaps. I've been thinking about, we need to have basically a no bad ideas brainstorm. That's how I'm thinking about it. Yep. Like a good old-fashioned no bad ideas brainstorm.
She really thought that she struck gold with that phrase, didn't she? A good old-fashioned no bad ideas brainstorm. She repeats it like it's some profound philosophical breakthrough. Here's a good old-fashioned idea for you, Kamala. Please, for the love of God, just go away. Anyway, that's it for now. Head on over to my super cool merch store at don'twalkrun.shop. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel, and hope to see you next time, if there is next time.